What's up, everyone? Garrett here, and this is Code the Web. So, if you guys remember from the last video, which was earlier this week, we designed the website in Photoshop. We did 3 pages, and we decided that we're going to do the website across 3 different pages instead of one long scroll down page. And so, in this video, we're finally going to get our hands dirty, and we are going to start by coding the homepage, which is right here. We're looking at the Photoshop document right here, but we're going to head on over to Coda and to Chrome, and we're going to start coding everything out. So the first things first, before we go and do that, I just want to say that what I've done is I've started out in Coda. I've got all of our images here in an images folder, and we got the background, the fav icon, which isn't actually our fav icon, it's just the default fav icon. And then we've got the logo, and then we've got the index page, which is, or the index.html file, which is just our home page, the portfolio.html file, which is obviously our portfolio page, and then the testimonials.html file, which is our testimonials page. So what I want to do also is, before I go on, I do want to say that what I've done is, normally if you're a web design, or if you're a web designer or a web developer, what you would usually do is design the site on your local computer, so on your own computer, and then you wouldn't put it online anywhere. You would just show it to your client whenever they wanted to see it. But I thought it'd be really cool if you guys could actually see the website online working. So what I've done is I've created the website. Our Code the Web website is icodetheweb.com, and what I've done is I created a subdomain, so projects.icodetheweb.com, and this is where you guys can go and check out all of our the projects that we work on in videos like this. So right now it's just gonna be this one project, but in the future it will be you'll be able to see, like, it'll have links to all the different projects on this page. So just a heads up, if you guys want to check out the site and see how it works for yourself in a real browser, you can do so. I'll put a link down in the description. So that said, let's get started. So what I've got here is I've got this like basic template kind of a thing that I kind of start all of my web design projects with, and this is just the way that I set up an HTML page. So really quickly, I'll walk you guys through it. This is the first HTML tag, which tells the browser that everything inside of here is going to be HTML, inside of this and this. And then this is our head section, and the head section is kind of used just for extra information for the browser. So for example, the information that I'm using here is the title. So that's the title page, and the title is used for a lot of things, but 2 of those things would be 1, SEO, and 2, what would come up in a search engine. So the what you click on when you search something in Google or in Bing or in whatever, that would be the title of the page. So our title is going to be Code the Web. All right, and then this right here, this meta tag right here, is basically for the responsive aspect of it, and that basically tells the browser that depending on the device that you use, that you want it to get a different version of the site. So if you're on a mobile device, you want the mobile version of the site to be displayed, and if you're on a desktop, obviously you would want the desktop version of the device to be, or desktop version of the website to be displayed. And then this is just the character set that we're going to be using. There's a lot of different character sets out there. That's a common one. And then this right here is the fav icon. That just links to the fav icon, which is right here. And then this finally is links to our CSS, so our style sheet. And we're just going to be using one style sheet. It's going to be really, really simple. We're actually not going to have too many files for this. We're just going to have 3 pages, so that, 3 pages, so 3 files, and the style sheet, and then a few images. So it won't be anything too extensive, or it'll be very simple. That's what I'm trying to say. And then this is our body section, and our body section is where all of our code more or less is going to go when we start making the site, which will actually be now. So what we got to do is we got to kind of determine what we need by looking at the Photoshop document. What is here and what do we see? What do we need? So I see like 4 or 5 things here. The first thing is this logo up here, and then that's in the top left, and then over here in the top right is the navigation bar, and then and I know that I spelled portfolio wrong, but it will be spelled right, obviously, in the website. And then this is our title, that's Code the Web, and then our tagline or our subtitle or our slogan or whatever you want to call it is Learn the Internet. And then this awesome background here. So let's get all the HTML out there, and then we can start with the CSS, and that's the fun part, is the CSS. So we want to start out by, since we're going to be using one CSS file, and we'll be using we won't be linking other files into this. What we're going to do is we don't want to edit the body directly, because if we edit the body directly, and this is this will be used for the background, so we don't want to edit the body directly, because if we make the background of the body this image, then every page is going to have that, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is we're going to wrap this in a div, and a div is just a tag that kind of allows you to group things together. So div, and this div is going to have a class of main, and this main div will actually only really be present on this page here. So we have that, so that's that, and then inside of this div is where our entire site is going to go. And actually we don't need to do this, we can just kind of put it here. So we're going to do div main, and then we're going to have another div, and this is going to be the container. And this div is going to be, this is like the really important div. The div main is just so we can have that background on the entire site without having to edit the body and make the background on the body, if that made sense. So this div is going to have a class of container, and like that. And then in here is where we're going to have everything. So we need to have, since like I said before, we're not going to have multiple files that we link to within this file here. So our header, our head section, which is this logo and the navigation bar, are going to be coded inside this page, not in another page and then brought in. So, and you'll see what I mean by coded in another page and then brought in later projects that we do, because some of those projects will actually do things that way. But for now, we're just going to do it this way. So what we want to do is we want to have another div, and this div is going to be, actually we also want to make this the ID. This div is going to have a class of header. Okay, and then inside here is going to be inside here is going to be image, and the class is going to be logo, and the source is, this needs to point to /images/logo.png, and that's it for that image. And then what we need is the nav bar. So just that, the tag for that is just nav, not VA. It's just nav. And then inside here we're gonna have all of our buttons. So A, and the href. One thing I do want to say though is that if you look at this, there's a lot of different tags. So there's like this div tag here, an image tag here, an A tag here, and these, but then there's also these other things that are inside of the tag. And what these are called attributes, and what they actually do is they allow you to add extra information to the tag, or about the tag. They allow you to tell the browser more information, more about that tag. So for example, this tag is, and the A right here, that's the tag, but then the href is going to add more information, and in this case href determines where this button or where this link will go. So we're going to have it go to index.html, and this is going to be our home page. And now we're going to copy and paste this because that just saves us time, and if you can save time, why wouldn't you, right? So portfolio.html, and then we're going to call this portfolio, and then testimonials. It's testimonials, not testimonial. Okay, cool. And then that's that. And that's pretty much it for this area right here. And now we're going to bring it down to, so what we've just done is we've just added this navigation bar and this logo right here to the HTML file. Now we just need to do this code the web and the learn the internet thing part. So we're going to put these both in a span, and a span is kind of another div-like tag where you kind of group things together, but it groups them together horizontally. It spans from one side to the other, just like its name would imply. And you can use spans in a bunch of different ways. They're very useful. You can use divs in a bunch of different ways as well. But I personally use them to group things like this, or to edit things in bulk how another way I like to think of it. You know how you can buy things in bulk, you can edit things in bulk, and you can group them and whatnot. So within this span here, we're gonna have an h1 tag, and this is gonna be our code the web. And then we're gonna have another span, and this one is gonna be an h2 tag, and within this we're going to say learn the internet. Cool. And now I believe we're done. Cool, awesome. So I know it doesn't look like much, but it's actually perfect because that's all we told the browser to display so far. That's all of our content, and it's not that much. It was including my my already added lines of code here, and this white space that I'm very generous with. It's not that much. It's only 41 lines of code, which is really not that much at all. And then now we're going to start with the style. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here with this to add the background. We're going to start with that to this div main. So we're going to say dot main, and we're going to have the background image be this background right here that we have over in our images folder. So that would be /images /background.jpg. It's a JPEG, right? Yeah, it's a JPEG. And then background position is going to be center. So basically what that means is that we want it to be centered horizontally and centered vertically. I don't know which, the horizontal or the vertical comes first in that center, but it's what it does. It doesn't really matter which one comes first, I guess. And the next is background repeat. We don't want it to repeat at all, so no repeat. And I'll show you what this does here. It does pretty much that. So what we need to do now is first we need to add a height. That'll make it so it's obviously bigger, so 700px is what our height is going to be, and that's going to make it so it's kind of like so. Then what we're going to do is we're going to have the background size, and this is really cool. This right here, this cover right here is going to make it so it's full screen more or less. But we still have one more problem, and I actually left this part out. This would have come before the dot main, but I actually left this part out on purpose so you guys could see this. And there's this like white 10 or 15 pixel margin around the top and left and right borders, and actually and the bottom as well. We just couldn't see it. But we don't want that. We want the margin to be 0. So what we have to do is that's the actual body. Like, that's not any of the elements within the HTML. That's just the default way that the body of an HTML the HTML like document is. So what we have to do is we have to tell the body to have basically a margin of 0, and so we're just gonna do that like so. It's really simple, 3 lines of code including these curly brackets. So that basically is gonna make it so it's truly full screen, which is really exactly what we want. And also, if you remember this cover thing that I told you guys about, basically it makes it so it stretches it like this, so it's always full screen, and it's always it makes it bigger, and it cuts off, it zooms it in, and it cuts off the top and the bottom as you stretch it out and as it gets bigger. so it can remain full screen and look really nice and awesome like that. So yeah, so that's that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the container, which I believe is next, right? It's right here. And we're going to say container, and the only thing that we need to do with the container is determine the height and the width. And we're actually going to edit this later on at the very end with our media queries, and that's going to make it responsive. But for now, what I want to do is I just want to show you guys, we're just going to set up the desktop version of the site first, and then we can go and add the media queries later, which will make it responsive, like I said before. So the height is going to be 700 px, and px, not pc, and the width is going to be 1000 px. And then also one more thing we're going to do is we want it to be centered. We don't want it to be off to the left. If you'll notice, everything is kind of towards the left, so by default everything is on the left. We want everything to be in the center, no matter how big the page is. So you see, as I refreshed it, everything's now in the center. It's still in the left of the container, but the container itself was centered, and that's really what we want. So that's it for the container. Next is, I believe, this header, the div header. So we're just gonna have dot header, and the only thing I think we need for the header is margin top of 0 and width of, I don't even know if we need this, but we're gonna find out, of 1000 px, because that would just be 100%. And we can actually just make it say 100%. It doesn't really make a difference. Whoops. Doesn't really make a difference. Nothing's going to change, and that's the way we want it. Next is the logo. So dot logo. And this, we want to have a margin from the top of 10 px. Let's just see on our Photoshop document if that's right. So yeah, looks like about 10. Also, one more thing to notice is that for some reason we had a margin on this, and the margin from here to here was 75, and the margin over here was 50. I don't know why I made it 75 over here, but I wanted it to be 50. Not really sure why that happened. I don't really remember. But yeah, so that's that. But in our site, this Photoshop document right here is 1000 pixels wide by like 700 or 800 pixels tall. But the thing is, our browser window here is more than 1000 pixels wide. So it already kind of gives, we already have a margin on either side. So we're actually not going to have a margin at all within our container. Think of our container as the dimensions of this Photoshop document, or the actual Photoshop document. And then everything, all of our content on the page, all of our elements are going within the container or within the Photoshop document. So just letting you know, we're not going to have that margin, but it will look as if we have that margin because our browser window is bigger than 1000 pixels wide. So yeah, so we're going to refresh the page, and then if you'll notice, there's a margin at the top of 10 pixels, and then according to Photoshop, the margin at the top for the navigation bar is like 26-ish pixels. And we're just going to do this. We're going to make this, nav is going to be margin top 26 pixels. And also, another thing that I just forgot to do here, this is going to float left. By default, it floats left, but we're just going to also make it specific and specify, because it never ever hurts to make things more specific and just be as specific as possible. So float, we're going to have this float right, not left. And on this one, on the nav bar, it is necessary to say float right, because since by default things float left, that's why this nav bar is over here and not over here on the right side. So if we refresh the page, the navigation bar is now going to be on the right side here. So now there is a margin here at the top, but we're actually going to fix that really, really quickly once we start to edit this right here. But first, before we start to edit this title, this H1, we just really need to really quickly edit these, edit the navbar CSS wise, and make sure that it looks the way it does in Photoshop. So I think the font size is 20 pixels, and the font is called Cabin, but I've used Cabin before online, and it doesn't come out the same way it does in Photoshop. So we're actually gonna go to Google Fonts and pick another font out, and I will show you guys how to do that at the very end, or soon-ish. Yeah, no, right after we do this with the navbar with the links, then we're gonna go and pick out the font from Google Fonts. So we're actually not gonna do that at the end. It'll be like in the middle-ish. So now let's start with the fonts. So these are A. So we didn't in our index page, we didn't give this a class, or actually we are going to give this a class because we might want to have links elsewhere on the page. We don't know yet. And what a class does is, a class is basically how you connect an HTML element to a CSS, to like something into a block of code in a CSS file. So that's why it's very important that we have this class. That's why we need the class. And they're all going to be the same because we want them all to have the same style. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have dot navbar, and first things first, the color is going to be white. The font size is going to be 20px, and we're also going to have a margin left of 25 pixels, and text decoration, which is the underline. Right now it's underlined. We don't want it to be underlined at all. Let's see. Perfect. Awesome. So it looks like they're spaced out pretty decently, and this will there's no underline. But what we're going to do is now, let's say you were to hover over it. How do you know really? I mean, you can see that your mouse is over it, but nothing changes about it. We want to make it kind of a little bit interactive. So what we're going to do is we're going to also have this nav.navbar, and now we're going to add a pseudo class, which is it's basically a pseudo class is like another state of that same class. So this pseudo class is hover, and we're going to say whenever the mouse or the cursor is hovering over anything with the class of navbar, we're going to have a text decoration of underline. And watch this. Now if we hover over it, it's underlined, which is pretty awesome. Looks really good. Now we're going to go to Google Fonts, and we're going to pick out a font that we like, and we're going to add it. And this is pretty lucky. No, I don't like that. I'm gonna add this one right here. And so what you do is actually I'll show you. So what you do is there's right here, it shows you how many fonts there are, and there's 647 fonts that we can scroll through, right? So what you do is you find the font you want. You can also search for a font. You find the font you want. You add it to your collection, and then once you do that, you can hit use. And basically what this does is we want the light versions of all these too, by the way. Basically what this does is, and you can choose which you want, and I think maybe we will go with we're gonna go with this one right here, Open Sans. So now we're gonna do, we check off the one that we want, and these are all the different variations of the font that you can have. So extra bold or normal or whatever it is. We want the light version. Now we're gonna come down here, we're gonna grab this HTML, and notice that this is a link similar to, if you look here, similar to the links for the fav icon and the style sheet, and we're just going to paste it right in our head section there. And then with the CSS, it also gives us some CSS to use, and we're using Open Sans, I believe. We're going to take this CSS, and we're going to add this CSS right here to the body section, and that makes it so everything in the body, which is really everything that we have on our site, is going to have this font. Whereas if we were to add it to just the navigation bar, then only the things in the nav bar would have this font. But we want everything to be this font. So we're going to change this, and as you can see, now everything is a different font, and it looks way better. So now we can finally start to edit the span, which the only thing we're going to do to the span is make a width of 100%. That's not correct. We don't want the pixels there. 100%. And then that's it for the span, really. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to H1, and we're going to make this font size, first off, font size 80 pixels. Color is going to be white. Text align is going to be center. We're going to clear this as well. We're going to clear both. And let's see what that gets us. Whoa, awesome. That's in the center. And actually, if you'll notice, I believe it was the clear both that did this. Yeah, it was. Cool. So the clear both clears this margin up here. So now that we clear that, we'll just do this again. It gets rid of this margin. So like I was saying, we were going to get rid of that margin before. Done. Now we don't have to worry about it. And now we just need to make it lower on the page. So I think we're going to have a padding top of perhaps something like maybe 210. Maybe a little bit less, just 200 maybe. Cool, I like that. That sounds good. And now we're gonna do the H2, which is H2, and this is the tagline that we have, learn the internet. And so we're actually just gonna copy and paste this whole thing here because it's more or less gonna be the same, except the font is gonna be, according to Photoshop, the font is 36. 36px, and this does not have to be padding top of 200. We're actually going to start off with 0 and see where that's not the right application. We're going to see where that gets us. Cool, so it got us to there. So we're going to have negative 50 maybe, and I think this doesn't work, and then we need to use margin instead. Yeah, that actually worked out pretty good. We're just gonna have 60. See, perfect. I think that looks awesome. So right there, we've got what our Photoshop document was, which is right here, and then this is our actual internet, our actual site, and this is the document. So it's really looks really good, I think, and I think that's pretty perfect if you ask me. So yeah, so now we're just going to add the media queries like I was talking about, because if you'll notice, if you make this bigger, it scales really well, but if you make it smaller, it doesn't, and obviously for our purposes that's a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here, and we're going to add a media query, and we're going to say at media screen, and for this one, so we're going to have two media queries. We're going to have a minimum width for this, because this is going to be the full, like the big desktop version, and for this we don't really care how big the screen is or how big the browser window is. We only care how small it is. So if it's anything above this size, which we'll say 1000 pixels, then we're gonna put this container in there, and then we're gonna do this. We're gonna have the container be like so, and so if we refresh it, nothing changes. And if we move it like this, nothing changes, because this is still just making it, see? Now, look how well that scales. Look at that. So if we make it bigger, it doesn't really change because it's still 1,000 pixels or bigger. But if it goes smaller, see how well that scales? I mean, that just looks amazing right there. I could do this all day, but I won't because I've got stuff to do. But that's pretty much it. So remember, you can go to projects.icodetheweb.com and you can check this out for yourself live and see how awesome this scales, and just drag it back and forth like that. I'm sure I'm making you sick by now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely subscribe, because we're going to have another video coming out Wednesday on something totally unrelated to this. But then on Friday, we'll have something totally related to this. And we're just going to be having a lot of fun doing this type of stuff. So subscribe, comment, rate, whatever, and stay tuned for the next video, like I said, on Wednesday, and then on Friday. That's really the schedule that I'm kind of working with, Wednesdays and Fridays. And yeah, so I'll see you then. Peace.